Yeah, and maybe talking about Harare as well, you can put it in there.
Yeah, what was the seed of the idea for that?
So the seed was kind of, I had the opportunity in last year, in 2019, to travel to Europe and America and attend most of the art fairs in the city. And it was quite exciting that in most of the art fairs I attended, there was a Zimbabwean artist, from Freeze to 154 in London to Freeze London even, and Paris as well. So for me, it's like, this is exciting and we're quite happy, but I thought, why wouldn't we have such a similar event at home? And I saw how the art fair is going to like bring the whole community of artists and those who are interested in art and culture, they all came together. And yeah, it was such a big thing for the city, like, because I was on a residence in Paris as well, and how that city, the art and culture sort of like ingrained in the city and the people, and how artists are they are actually respected. When you say I'm an artist, then you sort of like get some respect and attention from people in the city. And I thought we should have something similar like this in our country, where we are successful in our individual capacities. Why don't we, at one point, make a community and as peers just have something in place? And with what was happening this year with the destruction in the normal art world, and then we saw there was a huge focus on the online space, and well, me and my other colleague thought it might be a very good opportunity for us to start something, because with the online space we are all scattered around the world and we are not allowed to travel to be at home or in another particular space. Why don't we use that platform to bring all of us, whether in the UK, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, or in other parts in the world, and have a showcase of our creativity?
It would be great to actually, I know that obviously we have to do it online at the moment, but eventually at some stage to actually gather the diaspora back.
Indeed, yeah. So we're trying to engage with the city, which have endorsed the project, which is fantastic. We got a letter from the town clerk saying it was quite something they would be willing to look at and have discussions. So I think in future we do really need to have a physical one. Yeah. We have everybody come in and actually hopefully do what we have seen in other cities, like here in Cape Town, how the Cape Town and Investor Cape Town Art Fair is such an integral part on the calendar of the visual arts here in the city. Everybody's just focused, they get to know the artists, they go to experience art and have that form of culture and art that they can be proud of. So that's a similar way. We thought, if nobody has been discussing, nobody was doing it, why don't we try it out? And we got such positive feedback from you guys as well. And I'm sure it's going to be the beginning of something that we will be proud as Zimbabwean artists and creatives.
It's quite the word that comes to mind is sort of meta, but I think because we all deal with the idea of the diaspora in our practice as well, and then the sort of art Harare is also dealing with the diaspora as well as Zimbabwean artists, and sort of trying to bring everyone together again. I don't know, how do you think the idea of the diaspora has affected your work or your practice?
I think obviously my early work was always inspired by the local environment. So having lived in a highly politicized environment, 2007, 2008, so response was to sort of like visually comment about what was happening in the country. So the work obviously had then a very huge focus on the political side of what was happening in the country. And then when you shift and you leave the country and you come here, where first there was the sort of like, now you know that you're practicing. You have to have, because it's such a community and much more mature art world, if I can say that. And you start navigating that and seeing other artists, how they're working very seriously, very professional. And you need to have a studio. You have to get materials from an art shop. Which in Zimbabwe, we just painted wherever we were. We would paint outside or under a tree. We took our work seriously, but the practice side we never did. We say, I'm a practicing artist. This is my career. This is what I do, and this is a sort of like the way I work. So coming to the diaspora and you get these influences and seeing other artists also, it's kind of way you sort of professionalize, if that's a word. Professionalize your career. And then needing a studio, so...
But what I'm trying to ask is has sort of in terms of your subject matter or your influence,
yes. Okay.
The idea of the diaspora or being in exile or being part of the diaspora, is it a part of your work and your ideas around your work?
No, not exactly. There might be, in some instances, yes, or a particular work, but not exactly. My work is very narrative of obviously the environment where I am, how I respond to what is happening in this environment, or with my family, or personal, or other things that are happening in the world, and I try to interpret them visually in my work. So, yeah, I would say the fact mostly was the sort of like the idea of become artist. Like I mustn't look for a job or something else. I'm committed to this. Yeah.
And the sort of situation in Zim, does that still influence your work?
It does. Yeah, because I have my family there, and sometimes I go back home, and there's obviously that hope and dream that we'll get to a better position than where we are now. And yeah, it's home as well. So you can be anywhere in the world, but Zimbabwe is always home. So that I still get, yeah. Especially obviously also of my culture and some of the iconic icons that I use in my work or symbolism still comes from there as well. So, yeah.
What have you done?
Yeah, I mean, we still have a house in Zimbabwe, so I still feel quite attached to it. Although my parents are here, so I feel I'm living the diaspora in a way as well. So, are you asking how the diaspora fits in my work? Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff around it with the sort of China bags and sort of Space Invaders and stuff around migration, and I've even crossed the border illegally once with a cigarette smuggler. Make a video.
That was quite was that recently or was that long ago?
That was in 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't really planned. I'd always been fascinated by the border because it was this sort of place of menace, especially when we crossed it with my family. My father was just like, let's go, don't take any photographs or whatever. But when I got some funding to do a project, and I went up to the border, and I realized from the South African side it was more accessible. And so, inspired a whole lot of works. I filmed a guy moonwalking across Bight Bridge from Zimbabwe to South Africa. But we also found, on the Zimbabwean side, a guy who was like, come, I'll show you how we cross the border. I smuggled cigarettes, so took a camera. Didn't actually realize how dangerous it was. We kind of bumped into like one of these Guma guys who was like, I couldn't understand what he was saying to the cigarette smuggler guy, but luckily he left us alone. But he was a big guy, and he was, anyway, we were lucky. We crossed the border and went back again. And that was the time I went up with Gerald Machona. We did a couple of videos in Harare, and during his video he was throwing this old Zim currency off the top of this building, and the money was just landing on the road, and there was a crowd that formed. No one was picking up the money, and I had a bad feeling about that. And then when we went down, these plainclothes CID guys took Gerald, and
was that when you were there for Haifa? Was that the Haifa time?
yes. Yeah. And we were taken into a ZANU PF building, held there for a bit, and then a policeman took us to Harare Central, and then I was able to phone somewhere at Haifa, and we were released, but it was very nerve-wracking.
What about you?
What was the question again?
I'm just trying to see like how, I guess the question is also about how do you retain connection to your influences or what your life or your feelings for Zim?
Yeah, my work is deeply informed by the events that's happening in Zim. And currently I was looking on the creative side, the coerced creative side of Zimbabwean people, how they keep going and like how they make artworks unknowingly, but for them they think it's maybe a way of survival, like how they arrange be it shoes on their store, what makes them pick a blue pair to put it on next to a yellow pair of shoes, like that creative process. I more like contextualize it into I don't know how, like.
I mean, I think it's like if you go to like Mbari or a market and you see the way that the guys, whatever they're making, even the way they arrange their things like in the stalls.
And sometimes the way they lure customers, they create like nice chants, like songs, short songs, like that art aspect of like.
So like the guys who are selling the clothes.
They're like, wandera. That's interesting, but to them it's a way of survival. But to me, I see it like they are making art. If we were to record those kind of things and put them out there to the world, it can be a nice song.
But music, that's the thing about Zimbabwe and Zimbabweans. It's like music, art, poetry. It's always just been like, and just a normal part of life there, I think, for so many of us.
I'm here on a study permit. I was at Rhodes for the past 2 years, and this is my final year for the visa to expire. So for the whole year, I'm here in Cape Town.
Okay.
I'll go back to see.
It's also amazing how the artists in Zim like Moffat and Mishek have been able to keep working and producing despite the sort of difficulties of daily life in Harare.
I think they know their ways, like their homes. They've been there for a while. They know where to get what.
They got connection.
Yeah, to me here in Cape Town, I'm just here since February.
Yeah.
Some
But I mean, if you need paint,
paint
in Cape Town, you just go to the shop and buy the paint, right?
Yes, but I'm not a painter.
Well, but whatever, like.
Yeah, in Zim also, if you want paint and canvas, you can't find any shop that sells quality paint and canvas. So, but Moffat, if he was there, he would still be in Zim. I'm sure he will find a way to bring his material there.
I think there's an aspect also of improvisation, like how Moffat uses found objects. A lot of artists, there has been that trend in trying to use materials that are around them to create work rather than relying on this conventional products like paint and canvas and you just whatever is. And I think Moffat is a
But Wallen, I mean, also Wallen.
in Wallen as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's something that is amazing about the work that is
Also
done.
assistant. Help. Moffat is a lot of assistance in his
And the artist.
work making. Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably that connection with his people is different when you move here. You start to look like, like this one is good at this kind of work. And now you start to scout. It might take you probably 6 months to find that same person who can do that same thing like he that when you have, yeah. So,
And Tapato also, maybe the same question.
I think basically for me, I've been inspired with my family and people around me, people I know, people I grew up around. Like, if you see some of my work, you can see there's too much ladies posing in the work. Yeah, I've been inspired. I can't say inspired. I've been touched. I met one of the lady who was selling a body in Long Street. And I knew the lady, she was a teacher back home and she was living a good life. But when things they were tough, she didn't know what to do and she don't have even papers to work here. So she's trying to get ends meet. So the only way she do is selling about in Long Street. So
She's Zimbabwean.
yeah, Zimbabwean. Yeah, there's a lot of Zimbabwean girls there. But this lady, I know her, where she's from and where she come from. So I was so touched. So yeah, so in my way you can see like immigrants, I paint immigrants, asylum seekers, yeah, people who are looking for better life, surviving in South Africa.
But your early work was also influenced by the transport system. Yeah. It was always the movement. That's how we used to also to move around.
Yeah, it was like moving like
taxis and the trains.
for me, my trip from home, it was I get a bus in Bari to Bedbridge. I need to meet someone who's gonna make me move. So it was a change. So for me to I never been in Bedbridge before. I never like dream of just to go to Bedbridge. But for me it was so tough, like to meet people and see how people are struggling that side. But you can see the different South African side and Zimbabwean side. The moment you just cross to Zimbabwe, it's totally different. Yeah, it's totally different. So for me, it's so painful to see the people struggling the Zimbabwean side. Even the way we treated the border South African side also, like to see elderly people like get treated like that in immigration officers, so touchable also. So yeah, so that's what you see in my work. That's where I get my influence and yeah. In my stories, yeah.
and did you respond to your question?
About the diaspora. Well, I think about the obviously highlighting the experiences of those Zimbabweans who are also immigrants. Because if you were not here, maybe that wouldn't have been in your work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd probably take like a little piece of everyone's story. Like I think just in terms of the material that I use, I think I've also am used to being improvising and being resourceful with materials and seeing what's available, even if it's just lying on the side of the road or something. Recycling material, and then that idea of like composition, and then the idea of, and then also, I guess, the narrative of Zimbabweans being in South Africa or being in exile, and what kind of work Zimbabweans have to do in order to kind of survive here. But in a sense, we're also part of that, because as artists, we have also kind of gone through the same journey as lots of other Zimbabweans. Kind of moving, being in a foreign country and having to adjust and make things work. Yeah.
Because in some of your work also there was that the of the Mapadza, the one where was it also commenting on what was happening at home, the issue that we were agro-based. It was an agro-based economy.
Yeah.
Most families, actually, including my family, and I think everybody's here, would have some relationship with the land and would have a little bit of a munda somewhere where they grow a little bit of.
It's I like also in Dan's work. I think because I don't know, for some reason Zimbabweans, I don't know if it's kind of like the idea of Zimbabwe or our lives, they have kind of informed a big part of who we are. I think we also, there was just a sort of, before the political situation, I think we all had kind of experienced the sort of magical time in Zim, where things, there was so much kind of optimism and the idea of the new African democracy in Zim, which I think everyone kind of believed in for a long time, and then to have that kind of shift and change and be destroyed, I think it's kind of in some ways traumatized us in many ways, you know.
Dan, you also worked, I think, on some of your work where you use the currency.
Yeah, I mean, I like to use materials that resonate for me in my work. So the money became worthless, became an obvious kind of material for me to use. I came into a lot of that after that trip to Zim. Gerald's aunt ran a spaza shop, so we ended up importing a whole black bag worth of Zim currency at the end of 2009. And those China bags, not a big material in my work. But also like matches, making like words out of matchsticks. Did a work which says patience is Zimbabwean, which is a sort of play on the fact that there's that Zimbabwean sort of patience or resilience, and also the fact that patience is a common Zimbabwean name.
I like also the $20 or the $2 with the balancing rocks.
That balancing rocks print is actually it's on 45 different Zimbabwean banknotes.
Okay,
it's called
but the original it was. I can't remember what the original.
I think it's on the original. They're called Dombore Mari, which is the money rocks, and you'll find it on the back of all the original banknotes. It's on the $2, the $5, the $10.
All of them.
It's on there. Yeah. And there's a mother and child balancing rocks as well in Metopus. And
Yeah.
yeah.
When we looked at it for Harare and why we tried to make it, because there's so very few commercial galleries as compared to other cities. But then there's still a lot of artists that are producing exciting work. And we said, why don't we use that model where the artists themselves do the art fair and have the booths rather than waiting for us to grow a community of galleries and then have a fair. So that was kind of like the idea that
But I mean, I actually see it being like a really positive thing, because even if I think about it, it kind of takes away the pressure for galleries to be commercially successful at the fair. I think maybe with a little bit of funding and, I think artists just to have the opportunity to exhibit back in Zim, I can just imagine a kind of hall or national gallery with booths full of Zimbabwean artists. I think you ask any Zimbabwean artist anywhere in the world if they'd want to do that, and they'd say yes.
And I think that is the positive feedback we already got, because most of the Zimbabwean artists they're willing to do something and participating.
So I think it's a huge positive that this is artist driven, because it kind of cuts out all that kind of bureaucracy and red tape and that kind of kind of commercial pressure as well.
Fairs can work in places like Bamako and stuff. I'm sure they can work in Brazil.
Indeed. Because I think kind of like some basic infrastructure is there. We have school, art school, the National Gallery BAT art school where most of us attended. We have Gallery Delta now, which is the foundation, rather than just commercial space. The National Gallery. I think there is an opportunity there to showcase physically.
Physically it's very possible, because you remember ICA.
Yes, and ICA also.
International what it happened about 2-3 years ago. But you wouldn't believe the people who came for ICA. There were a lot. So a physical space, a physical art fair can be possible.
I think there's, always people obviously from the outside always think it's so isolated, Zimbabwe. It has been obviously, but I think there is opportunity there that is untapped. So, and I think artists, we have to find creative ways to do things rather than to say, nothing like this will happen in Zimbabwe. We always show overseas or in other countries, and I think to have an event that celebrates the local artists whether they are living in the country or
And
practicing.
and it's also nice because you're starting to kind of connect, like, Kamusha, and I think there are a lot of Zimbabweans even around the periphery of not necessarily visual artists, but people in the industrial sphere, and people in commerce and industry who you give them any opportunity to support something like this, and I think they'd be very excited to do that. So
I
it's,
think so.
yeah.
And the trick is to start.
That's a trick.
You gotta start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere for sure.
If we start next year, then the following year, it will.
Yeah, it's gonna get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
When people see the successful, I think a lot of artists also, they're gonna come on board, and yeah. But I think for me, it's so excitement that we are coming in the one house. Like, we never see something like this before, like Zimbabwean artist. It's my first time to meet him, and
It's a great idea.
It is. I think we can just say well done to someone who bring the idea, and we are so grateful also, like,
it's about
to show in it's been a long time we didn't show in like in one place, right?
I think that a lot of curators and collectors and institutions would actually be very interested to not have that middleman, that kind of gallery middleman in a sense. I think it's quite a nice kind of point of contact, and I'm starting to realize that more and more, is that galleries have a certain place in our practice, but it's also good to establish sort of direct communication, or sort of lines of communication to people.
Yeah, I think things are shifting anyway. Not only in the business world or in other aspects, tourism. I think there is also some form of new reality that is going to come in the art world as well. Nobody knows what is going to happen. So I think things are always going to be in constant change, and that's something also we discussed, that you have to just tiptoe
And that leads to growth.
And that leads to growth. Yes. Exciting for things not to always remain the same. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Cheers on an empty glass. Yes. Now we can cheers.
Cheers.